What's up, hunters? My name is Goober Troy, and this is my Monster Hunter World Field Guide series where I take all the monsters in the area and give some tips and tricks on how to best handle them. This is primarily a guide for beginners who are just starting the game and might want some initial information. Before we begin, I want to give a very brief background on my hunter experience. This was actually my first Monster Hunter game, and I found it to be a fantastic experience. It truly is a fun and addicting game, and I thoroughly enjoy it. As of recording this video, I'm hunter rank 49 with a little over 132 hours invested in the game. As a new hunter myself, I think I can give some insight from a different perspective. With that being said, let's take a look at the first area of exploration, the Ancient Forest. The first monster encountered here is the Great Jagras. I hope I say these names right. This lizard, he doesn't really do that much. He basically has no strengths, and he has weak spots all over his body, so you can basically just hit him anywhere. He will eventually go eat, and he gets really fat, but it doesn't really change a whole lot. This monster really is just a giant pushover. The second monster you'll encounter is the Kulu Ya Ku. This prehistoric ostrich, similar to the Jagras, has weak spots in a lot of accessible areas. There is one important aspect of this fight, though. Every so often, Kulu will dig up a rock. The issue with this is that he uses the rock as a shield, which will cause a lot of your attacks to deflect, and also decreases your sharpness very rapidly. So how do we get around this rock? With your slinger. If you have any kind of slinger ammo, like a stone, or red pits, or flash pod, and so on, you can knock the rock out of Kulu's hands. This will cause him to fumble the rock, and give you an opening to attack. Otherwise, Big Bird here has some pretty telegraphed attacks, and he should make for a quick hunt. Our next target is this abomination between a peacock and a chameleon, called the Pukei Pukei. I'm just going to call him Pookie for short. The biggest thing that you have to worry about with Pookie is his poison attacks. The way he poisons you is by spitting vomit, I assume. He just vomits at you. If you're on your toes with these poison attacks, you can easily dodge from them. He will also stand upright every once in a while, and he looks all giddy like a child on Christmas morning. And he'll kind of scurry his way at you with his tongue flailing around, and he'll try to use it as a whip. It has a pretty wide hitbox, and so my recommendation is to dodge into him, because you'll have less tongue to deal with. Lastly, Pookie will sometimes fly up into the air and start eating what I assume are berries. I guess I ultimately don't really know. But basically, if you can interrupt him while he's flying like this with a flash pod or using a bomb pod or something, he will crash land, allowing you for a lot of free, easy damage. Interrupting his eating also prevents him from stacking up on his poisonous ammo. If he does eat, however, he will be much more aggressive with his poison attacks and can even expel a poison cloud from his tail. Outside of the poison, though, Pookie doesn't do that much damage, so avoiding getting poisoned as much as possible will make this fight much simpler for you. Moving on to our next hunt, we have the electric squirrel, Tobi Kadachi. Tobi is very mobile and jumps around a lot. He likes to jump on trees and do a lunge attack where he will either do two attacks. It's either going to be a vertical slam with his tail, or it will be a horizontal tail sweep. The slam is easy to dodge, but the sweep has a lot more range than you would expect. If you're able to dodge this attack, you can sneak in a hit or two before he starts to jump away again. Another aspect about Tobi that makes him difficult is the blight that he can afflict. Blights are basically status ailments, and in this case, Tobi can afflict you with a blight that makes you get stunned much easier. Carry some nullberries to remove this blight as soon as possible. My final tip when fighting Tobi is to just take it slow and just use a more hit and run tactic. Tobi's very small but very mobile, and overcommitting to any attack can leave you open for punishment. From here on, we're going to be talking about the big boys of Ancient Forest. The first target is going to be the Anjenath. This dino is very aggressive and he can hit quite hard. The way that I like to fight him is to stick to his ankles. Initially, his ankles aren't a weak spot and they just take normal damage. However, if you manage to break his leg, they will become vulnerable and you can start to deal bonus damage. Anjenath becomes enraged whenever his wings are out and his nose horn is fully erect. In this mode, he gains access to fire attacks, which can be quite deadly. The fire attacks I'm talking about are specifically when he sneezes. He has two sneeze attacks. The first is where he sneezes in a wide arc in front of him, and the second one, he sneezes in a line straight forward. Both of these are very deadly and will likely one-shot you if you're hit. I found that he tends to do the sneeze attacks towards the end of his enrage, so if you find that he's been enraged for a while, it might be best to back off for a little bit and wait till the sneeze attack comes out. I think another important aspect when fighting Anjenath is the environment around you. There are a lot of ledges that you can use to jump off of and mount Anjenath. Another thing I found very useful when finding Anjenath for the first time were using traps. Shock traps and pitfall traps can be used to hold Anjenath in place, allowing you to freely attack for a few seconds. In order to craft these traps, you will need a thunderbug and a trap tool for the shock trap, and you will need a net and a trap tool for the pitfall trap. Trap tools can be bought from the vendors at the trade yard or the gathering hub of the headquarters. If you take your time and chip in damage when you can, this dinosaur with a cold goes down. Our next target is the Rathian. The Rathian is one of the first flying monsters you really encounter in this game, and it looks quite intimidating. Oddly enough though, Rathian spends most of its time on the ground instead of in the air. Rathian's most deadly weapon is her tail. Her most deadly attack is when she will hop up in the air and does little backflips swiping her tail on the ground. This will deal massive damage and will most likely poison you. She lets out a very distinct growl when she's about to do this attack, so if you can kind of pick out the different roars, you'll know this is coming. Cutting off her tail should be your number one priority, as it makes her most deadly attack much less effective. Her other deadly attack is her fireballs. Generally though, these are pretty easy to dodge, as long as you don't get stunned. However, she does this very annoying charge attack that basically looks like she's jogging across the battlefield, and she repeats it 3 times. Getting hit by it too many times will cause you to get stunned, so try to avoid that. My last tip is once you've cut her tail off, try to stay under her. She doesn't have a great way of hitting you in this position besides doing her 3 charges. After the first charge though, you should recognize it and be able to avoid the other 2. In summary, cut her tail off, stay close to her, and this monster is yours. This leads us to the final monster and the apex predator of the ancient forest, the Rathalos. Unlike the Rathian, Rathalos spends a ton of time in the air. Bring flash pods and as many flash bugs as possible so you can craft more flash pods in the field. If you need to farm flash bugs, areas 13 and 15 of the ancient forest contain a few flash bugs for gathering. This fight becomes quite simple once you have enough flash pods. Fire one of those each time he starts to fly, and he will crash land, allowing for a lot of free hits. Like the Rathian, Rathalos will also spit fireballs. Dodge these to the best of your ability and you should be okay. And that's basically it. Just bring as many flash pods as you can to this fight and it should be quite simple to light charge it up. My final tip before I end this video is to capture monsters as often as possible. You can capture a monster by either using a shock trap or a pitfall trap and 2 trank bombs. Before you can even capture the monster, however, they have to be critically low health. This is usually indicated by when the monster starts to limp away. Capturing also yields more rewards at the quest complete screen versus killing the monster, so be a humane hunter just for the sake of more loot. Happy hunting, and I'll catch you in the next zone.